Good morning on this 26th day of November. This is Metropol TV, Kenya's 24-hour business channel, and you're watching Metropol Business Center, the home of news and views from the world of business and economics. And every Thursday, we focus on matters technology, and I've got two exciting interviews that I would like you to watch on this show. My name is Stephen Kimani, but let's begin with the news, where we start on the banking front, where KCB Group, PLC, and Atlas Mara have signed an agreement which will see East Africa's biggest bank by assets increase its footprint within the region. KCB Group is now poised to acquire a 62.06% stake in Bank Populaire du Rwanda, PLC, and a 100% stake in African Banking Corporation Tanzania Limited from Atlas Mara in Rwanda and Tanzania, respectively. According to KCB, the successful completion of the transaction is subject to obtaining shareholder approval and obtaining regulatory approvals in the respective countries. The signing of the deal comes months after Equity Group and Atlas Mara called off the deal. KCB Group CEO and MD Joshua Oigara has said in a statement that the transaction was part of KCB's ongoing strategy to explore opportunities for new growth while investing in and maximizing returns from the group's existing businesses. The acquisition, he added, will buttress the group's leadership position and give it a stronger edge to play a bigger role in driving the financial inclusion agenda in the East African region while building a robust and financially sustainable organization. Meanwhile, the National Treasury has lowered the country's economic growth projection for 2020 to 0.6%, owing to economic disruptions occasioned by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The projection is an about turn from the previous projection of 2.5% earlier this year. And as Rosemary Kinyanjui reports, even amid this grim reality, the government has maintained that Kenya will not default on any of its loan obligations.
A few months after COVID-19 pandemic struck the country, the National Treasury projected an economic growth rate of 2%, citing the economy's resilience during the first quarter. 9 months into the pandemic, the government's projections have dimmed, with National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani now admitting that the pandemic has hit Kenya's economy harder than earlier estimated.
Economic growth for 2020 is projected at 0.6% in 2020 and 6.4% in 2021. Over the medium-term, growth will be above 6%.
Also hit by the pandemic is the government's tax collections. As at the close of October this year, the government collected 65.4 billion shillings less than the projected revenues of 570.7 billion shillings. This was as a result of suppressed economic activities and temporary tax relief measures introduced in the year to caution business and vulnerable Kenyans from adverse effects of COVID-19.
With the gradual opening up of the economy, we expect to reverse this trend in the second half of the financial year.
As the country embarks on a COVID-19 recovery strategy, the government is aiming for budget deficit target of 7.1% of GDP in the 2021-2022 financial year. The Treasury says it will achieve this by cutting back on non-essential spending to match the diminished revenues.
Reducing foreign travel significantly, reducing on aspects of training that, or maybe conducting this training within government facilities. At the same time, also reducing on advertisement and very many others.
Despite the diminished revenues, the government has maintained that it will not default on any of its loans or engage in loan restructuring.
That our debt situation is highly sustainable. It's sustainable enough. We've never defaulted, and we can't default. Our fiscal framework is healthy.
CS Yatani has said the country is working to reach a formal agreement by early next year to enroll on the International Monetary Fund's program to enhance the performance of the country's enterprises. Yatani says the engagement will also allow Kenya enhance its revenue collection and expenditure rationalization. Rosemary Kinyanjui for Metropol TV.
In more grim news on Kenya's economy, 2 million Kenyans have slipped into poverty as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the latest Kenya Economic Update report by the World Bank, due to lockdowns and the subsequent economic impact of the virus, finances of households have been disrupted, with those in the informal sector losing between 20 to 30% of their income. According to the World Bank senior economist Alex Sinnott, Kenya's economy is now expected to contract by between 1% and 1.5% this year. At the same time, the National Treasury Principal Secretary, Dr. Julius Muia, has said the government will, in January next year, reverse some of the tax relief measures that it had announced in April to cushion Kenyans against the economic ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We estimate is that it had a huge impact on poverty. In other words, we estimate that the progress of poverty reduction over the last 5 years was basically wiped out by this shock. And you can see this in this graph. And in numbers, I mean, this is a 4 percentage point increase in the headcount rate, or to sort of like put it like even more plastic, it's like about 2 million additional individuals who are now poor. Again, that's also something Keith mentioned. This is something we've unfortunately seen across the world. Now, like across the world, we are estimating between 88 to like 125 million additional poor, but Kenya is very much part of it, which is no surprise because, well, it had a very similar effect, like impact in terms of like the cases in other countries in Africa, as well as the containment measures that I've just shown in the previous slide.
We projected that GDP growth might dip to about 1.5% this year before rebounding to 5.2% next year. Subsequently, on the basis of the additional data we now have a base case for a contraction of 1% in 2020. And as you can see, in fact, a stronger bounce back to 6.9% in 2021.
Now, the questions about taxes in January being reversed, I want to emphasize that these are taxes that are being reversed because they are taxes that are kind of like adjusted downwards in April this year, and that was specifically to help businesses, to help Kenyans. And so the VAT that was adjusted downwards from 16%, 14%, we are reversing it back to 16%. But again, it is important to note that this is still the lowest in the region. The other countries in the region, their VAT rate is 18%. Then the corporation tax rate, the number, we are reversing the number from 25% to go back to 30%, just to reverse what was taken down in April this year. And then the pay as you earn, this is the highest income tax rate, which had been brought down from 30% to 25%. We'll take it back to 30%. And finally, the minimum tax for people who have an income of 24,000 shillings and less in a month, we are going to remove that clause that allows them not to pay any tax.
Meanwhile, the National Treasury says it will soon launch the credit guarantee scheme that seeks to unlock access to credit for countries' small and medium enterprises. National Treasury Principal Secretary Dr. Julius Muia says the Treasury has already identified local commercial banks that it will partner with to extend credit facilities to MSMEs that would have otherwise been locked out of credit facilities due to lack of collateral. DS Muia has further said the Office of the Attorney General will by next Friday clear all the legal paperwork required to officially launch the credit guarantee scheme.
We have advanced in terms of the paperwork and also identifying the commercial banks that are going to participate in that credit guarantee scheme program. So once we are able to get the Attorney General to clear the agreements, we will launch the credit guarantee scheme promptly. I see that happening not later than Friday next week, if I can be specific. And this is a framework where we are looking to support MSMEs through the financial institutions to be able to grant credit to business people that they wouldn't have granted credit without the credit guarantee scheme facility. This happens actually in a small way. And so for us to now have the government put in 3 billion shillings as a facility, that will provide the guarantee for the commercial banks. It's a step in the right direction. And this is just the beginning.
Moving beyond our borders, Ethiopia's 72-hour ultimatum to the Tigray region's Tigray People's Liberation Front to surrender has now expired, raising fears of an escalation of the conflict, which began 4 weeks ago after Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered a military offensive on the region. Meanwhile, Ethiopia has rejected calls for international intervention in the ongoing crisis, which has seen thousands of Ethiopians flee the country to neighboring Sudan, with hundreds feared dead. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has said the country will not accept what he terms as unwelcome and unlawful acts of interference in the country's internal affairs, adding that the country's government is undertaking a law enforcement operation against the TPLF, which he has accused of destabilizing the country over the last 3 years. A UN Security Council meeting, which was held on Tuesday to discuss the fighting on Tuesday, with African countries reportedly requesting more time to allow for diplomatic efforts by the African Union to continue, according to a report by the BBC. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on the unfolding situation in Ethiopia, among other stories, here on Metropol TV. Let's take a short break. We'll be back after this break with an exciting interview on our technology segment this week on Metropol Business Center.
Savings and credit has now become even more convenient for you. We are introducing the Amica Visa card, where you can access your account at any ATM across the country. With your Visa card, you can withdraw, deposit, and check balance at any ATM. Walk in any supermarket or petrol station and pay using your card with no worries. No need to carry cash around. Just make a swipe and we'll take care of the rest. For inquiries or applying for Amica Visa card, simply dial 0729 333 444 or send a WhatsApp text on 0718 079339. Amica Savings and Credit. Plan smarter, live better.
Welcome back. This is Metropol Business Center, the home of news and views from the world of business and economics. And on this part of the show, we delve into matters technology. And according to a report by KPMG, the number of African millionaires is set to rise by 53% to 257,519 by 2024, thus setting the tone for big business in Africa. This increase indicates a pronounced shift in lifestyle trends and a growing need for a narrative to the transformation. Similarly, research shows that 95% of all purchases will be conducted via e-commerce by 2040. And it is against this backdrop that Alexander Amosu, a serial entrepreneur based in the United Kingdom, founded Lux Afrique Boutique, a luxury goods e-commerce platform that seeks to cater to the needs of over 500 high net worth individuals, particularly Africans, who earn more than $1 million every year. And I engaged him on his business venture and what gave him the confidence to address this niche market through a niche platform. Let's listen in. Probably let's just begin first with what inspired you to start the Lux of Freak boutique. What inspired you to begin this business?
Well, I've been in the luxury game pretty much for the last 20 years. And I've always had a passion for luxury just in general. And then 4.5 years ago, I set up a concierge company that looks after high net worth Africans, approximately 500 of them. So when they come into town, we look after them, whether they want to buy a property, whether they want to go shopping, whether they want to invest, anything they need across Europe, we would provide that service as a concierge. But in the last 3 years, we've seen a massive increase of clients asking us to deliver luxury goods back home, directly to their home. So we would get a customer say, look, I'm going to a party on Friday. Today's Thursday. I need this shoes. I need this hat. I need this watch. I can't travel to London to buy it. Can you organize it for us? And what we would do is we will organize the items by buying it directly from the brands, and then put somebody on the plane that same evening to arrive next day in Africa to deliver to the customer. So these are the type of services we've been doing for our members within our concierge. But 2.5 years ago, we decided that actually this is something that is needed not just only for our members, but for the whole of Africa. If you look at in Asia, there's e-commerce sites there. If you look in Middle East, there's e-commerce site there. And if you look in Europe, brands like Metropol and Farfetch are very active. Why not Africa? Why not? So we decided to change the why not into we can. And that's the reason why we decided that, people who have money do like to buy luxury goods, regardless of whether they buy through us or not. They like to travel, and they like to spend their money. So why not provide them a platform that allows them not to leave their home? They can buy the goods directly from our website and have it delivered to their door. And that's the reason why we decided.
I'm just curious, how big is Africa's luxury goods market?
We're talking about probably $1 trillion. If dollars, probably much more than that. If you take individuals, I'll give you one perspective. One client could spend probably $500,000 a year on luxury goods, buying different things. Yes, so the market's huge. There's a massive potential there. But also you notice that in most countries across Africa, the luxury brands are only in certain territories. Like South Africa is one of them where you'd find Louis Vuitton, Gucci. Most of the brands are present there. But in the rest of the other African countries, there is no presence of luxury brands. And the only way for the consumers to be able to access these brands is by traveling to Europe. But not everybody wants to travel, and it's not convenient to travel all the time. So the process of being able to get these brands delivered directly to your home is the reason why we launched this platform.
Good. How do you reach the end consumer? I mean, you've given your story about how initially you would literally have people take flights to deliver, but how is it working now that you have an e-commerce platform?
Yes, so we have two ways we do it. For our VVIP customers, we do have our own personal couriers within our team, and they will be able to deliver the items within 24 to 48 hours. It's a simple, you order the process on our website and somebody jumps on a plane and delivers it directly to your home. So that's our VIP, and obviously during COVID that has been restricted slightly because of travel difficulties. But also we've partnered up with DHL Africa, and we've signed a memorandum of agreement. DHL haven't in the past been able to deliver to all of the countries in Africa, but with our partnership, we're working together, and they've given us a guarantee that they can deliver to all 54 countries in Africa with our partnership. And that's how we're delivering to all the doors across Africa.
Good. What are the premium goods that are available on Lux of Freak Boutique?
We have brands, from Chopard to Louis Strauss, Gucci, Stephen Webster, David Morris. I mean, the beauty of our platform is that even if you and you can't find what you're looking for, you simply do is contact our 24-hour team by clicking a button on our site, and that would go to our 24-hour, and you ask them whatever you need. Because of our relationship with brands, we're able to get anything that we don't have on through them, even if the item is a limited edition item, or even if something that you have to wait we have ways of being able to get that a little bit faster for our clients.
Very well. Given that you're in a technology business, capital will be required as you grow your business. Are you looking to raise capital soon? And if so, how much are you looking at?
Yes, I mean, at the moment, I've been able to do this on my own but there's always room for more investments. We're going to be opening our second round of investment of 5 million. And we're definitely looking for investors who want to be part of this great initiative. If you look at currently all the existing e-commerce sites that is launched across Europe, across Middle East, across China, who have floated on the stock exchange to date, are all in the region of over $1 billion in terms of value to date. So the proposition for any investor to come on board and join us in our crusade with the intention of basically being able to achieve those type of figures.
Good. What's your outlook of Lux Afrique Boutique in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, we want to be, the biggest e-commerce luxury provider across Africa. That's our job. We want households across Africa thinking about buying luxury goods to come to us. We'll be able to, look after them and deliver the goods directly to their door. Our plan is to be the best and to be the biggest. What we intend to do in the next 3 to 5 years is actually we're going to float the company on the stock exchange. And hopefully we can achieve a billionaire status once we do that in 3 to 5 years. But it's a very, very exciting time. We've got a lot of brands who are excited to be on board of our platform, and more brands are coming on board as we speak.
Good. Alexander, as we close this interview, you've been a serial entrepreneur since the age of 12 years, which is pretty impressive. What are the lessons you've learned? Because a lot of the businesses you've run have been technology oriented. What are some of the lessons that you've taken out that you could probably give young entrepreneurs here in Kenya around starting and establishing tech oriented businesses?
I've learned, from very young, I've been on this probably the guys in Kenya can relate to, is that raising capital for your business is always a challenge. I would never suggest to any entrepreneur who's starting their business to focus on raising capital. I think you need to focus on the idea, because if you focus on raising the capital, the challenges of raising capital means that your business won't start, and therefore your idea is basically going to die. So if you can focus on trying your best to make sure that your business starts, even if it's starting from a very, very small part, it's process. People can see where that direction is going, and people will jump on board there. So the first thing is capital. Never let that be the deciding factor for whether your business is going to. On the second point, you have to have that self-belief. Other people are not going to buy into your idea if you don't believe in your idea. You have to believe first. You have to be the one that carries the flag. You have to be the ones with the challenges, the sleeping at night, the difficulties, all the negative things that you're going to go through. And throughout that process, you still have to believe. And once you start believing and that motion is going, everybody else will believe in what you're doing and follow along. But it always ultimately starts with you as an individual. And that's really how life works. And those are the real key factors that I've learned in business, is that one, I never let financial investment in the business be the deciding factor of whether I'm going to launch a business. And two, I believe 100%, in my business idea. And it doesn't matter how many doors, whether it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 that I get no's, I know eventually I'll get that one. And that's very, very important set to know.
Final question. What will success look like for you as you begin the journey on Lux Afrique?
Well, success to me is having, everybody across Africa buying from Luxor Freak Boutique, and it becomes a household name where people generally can just go there and buy something they like and enjoy. Once we've achieved that, then, that's success to me, and I'll be a very happy guy.
Good. I wish you all the best, Alexander.
Thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate you having me on your show, and good luck to everybody in Kenya. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much. Or as we will say here in Kenya in Kiswahili, asante sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Well, that was my conversation with Alexander Amosu, who is the founder and CEO of Luxor Freak Boutique, an e-commerce platform that is focusing purely on high net worth individuals in Africa. Let's now take a short break on Metropol Business Center. After this break, we'll be turning the focus to matters cyber security. After this break. Welcome back. This is Metropol Business Center. My name is Stephen Kimani. And on this part of the break, we are now shifting gears to matters cyber security. And indeed, cyber security is steadily emerging as one of the biggest issues facing modern business. And at this hour, cybersecurity consultancy firm Serianu is launching its annual cybersecurity report. I spoke earlier with Joseph Madenge, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Serianu, on the highlights of this year's report, which he says has laid special emphasis on data protection. Let's listen in. Good morning, Joseph, and welcome to Metropol Business Center.
Yes, good morning. Glad to be here.
Very well, let's get into it. You're launching a cybersecurity report for the year 2020. Probably you could just take us through the highlights of what the survey has found this year as far as cybersecurity is concerned.
Very good. Key focus for this particular report, it's in essence a double report. There are a couple of key issues that we focused on for the 2 years, or for the 2 reports that we did. One looked at the data protection. As you may very well know, the Kenya passed data protection into law early in 2019. And then also 2020 was, of course, significantly impacted, and the way of doing business was changed significantly because of the impact COVID. So these were the two key themes that we focused on this particular report, and delved into them to try and step people through. For example, on data protection, do people really understand from a corporate environment what would be the impact to the organization now that this is the law of the land? And then also, how well have they managed with the pandemic situation, with the health situation of their people, with their staff being forced to work remotely, with them having to get better in delivering solutions digitally, and so on and so forth. These were the key areas that we focused on.
Very well. What are the emerging trends around cybercrime this year?
Sorry, I missed the question. If you could say that again.
What are some of the emerging trends that you witnessed around cybercrime in Kenya?
So in this one report, we did not focus too much on cybercrime and the effect. So in terms of actual good numbers that I would like to share with you. And however, talk extensively to say that we saw an uptick in terms of the attack vectors through which malicious actors were trying to target, be they financial institutions or they be they all other sectors. We saw, for example, an increase in digital-based attacks focused on manufacturing, focused on the healthcare system, with them grappling with issues around ransomware and ransomware attacks and the effect of that in terms of their data getting encrypted and they're being forced to pay out a ransom so as to get their data back. We saw an uptick in other segments that traditionally did not really pay too much attention to the fact that a lot of their processes and systems are now based on some form of technology, some form of computer, and those transactional systems are being targeted and being hit. However, in terms of the losses themselves, we did see quite a significant loss. It continues to grow year on year. For example, in 2019, we estimated the cost of cybercrime across Africa to be a little bit over $4 billion.
Wow. Probably, let's just go back to the issue of data protection. To what extent are consumers aware of their rights in terms of protection of their data as they visit various sites, as they conduct their business online? What's the extent of the understanding around data protection here in Kenya?
So unfortunately, the level of understanding, the level of them being able to appreciate exactly how this law is going to impact them, it's been a bit surprising. There doesn't seem to be a very clear understanding that indeed now that this is the law of the land and that this is the law of the land, there is potentially financial penalties if you're not compliant to the law. There's really a very low understanding and appreciation of exactly those numbers. More than 45% of our survey indicated that quite a number of people were not cognizant to the fact that indeed now this is a scenario that's going to impact them significantly. That indeed we're now in a situation where law of the land, and if you're collecting personal identifiable information for your clients, for your customers, that indeed now there are certain things that you must do so as to keep that data private.
Very well. Let's just switch forward. This has been a very interesting year. COVID-19 has been basically the dominating factor around business. And of course, we've also seen an uptick of technology-enabled processes, whether it's from meetings like the one now we're having, an interview. To what extent do we see this new normal continuing? And probably, what should we be considering from a cybersecurity point of view going forward, given that this is now the new normal?
So yeah, I like that. I find that statement to be an interesting one, that this is the new normal. But here's fact. It's very unlikely now that we will be forced to have to go back every single day to work. Positive to that, obviously, Nairobi is well known for its traffic. If you're only forced or required to be in the office 2 or 3 days in a 5-day work week, you have 2 days that you could potentially work remotely. Being able to work from the comfort of your home both relaxes how you're able to work, because you pick, in essence, your work environment, you more or less pick your work hours, you will find that people potentially work longer hours. If I look internally within our organization, I found the productivity of our people to be significantly higher. I want to contribute that to the fact that they've been able to work in a more relaxed, more self-paced environment to be able to do it. So those are some of the positives. You may find that there will be greater appreciation of the work environment when you do not have to go into the office every single day and deal with the headache of getting there. Having said that, the infrastructure to manage that is significant. You now have to find a way to grant all your people remote access into the environment, and then also make decisions in terms of what data they can be able to access to. If you take the financial sector, certain practitioners within that sector, be they within the credit and lending, be they in other operational aspects that are not immediately client facing, how much access will you grant them to the core banking system that has visibility to transaction information, that has visibility to personal identifier information for your customers, and so on and so forth? Therein lies the difficult question from a cyber perspective. You must enable the employees to be able to work, to access the resources that they need, at the same time protect the data that they're accessing to ensure that that same conduit is not used by an attacker to get access, to initiate fraudulent transactions, to change loan amounts, to extend payoff periods, and so on and so forth. Those are the areas within cybersecurity that practitioners will need to be able to care for. How do you enable the business in a secure fashion to allow it to continue growing in this remote social distancing environment that we're currently operating in?
Finally, what are some of the key takeouts from the report that you are putting out there to corporates as they plan ahead?
So a key question that has been continuous, a key conversation has been business continuity. Business continuity, we are in the face of a health disaster. If you're in an organization that has one or multiple people infected by this COVID-19, how do you enable the rest of the organization to continue working, particularly if those people are critical players? So business continuity has come front and center in addressing this health disaster, in how best to be able to do it. This is an area that our report emphasizes to the organization in being able to manage it. Continuous investment in technologies has been a controlling theme for most organizations. A key component that we now ask in this report that we want organizations to look at is how do you measure the effectiveness of that? And how do you measure the effectiveness of the technologies that you're putting in place, that you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, in essence, tens of millions of shillings, so as to put in place? Are they improving your overall risk posture? A key question that we ask is how do you measure the risk that is continuously been appreciated? Is how do you measure truly, not from a technology perspective, but really that of the current environment that you're operating with, and as you grow your digital footprint, how are you managing that risk?
Thanks a lot, Joseph, for your insights.
Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to be here.
Very well, that was Joseph Madenge, the Chief Operating Officer of Serianu, a cybersecurity consultancy firm that is releasing its latest cybersecurity report, which, as I said earlier, lays special emphasis on data protection. And we'll be giving you the details of that report later on our news bulletins. But now let's take another short break. After the break, we'll be taking a look at this week's gadget on Metropol.
At this time, I want to paraphrase another text from the Old Testament, and this is Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 6. And it says that, nevertheless, I will bring health and healing to it. He was referring to the city of Jerusalem, how it was polluted, how the evils and just crowded the skies and even the streets of Jerusalem, and says, I will heal my people and will let them enjoy abundant peace and security. So God is promising restoration of his people. And I want to give you this hope of restoration, that amidst this coronavirus, God is going to heal his people. Are you infected? Are you affected in one way or another as a family, as I am talking to you today? God has promised that he will heal the land, this city. The cities of the world today are crying of COVID-19, but God is saying he will heal them, and he will heal the people and let them enjoy abundance, peace, and security.
Babe, tunafaa tujue status yetu.
Hapo hapana.
Unaniangusha msee. Namaanisha CRB status.
Wanaume ni madeni, hata gava iko na deni. Kwani mimi ni nani nisipe na deni?
Ni muhimu kujua CRB status yako, ndio tujipange. Ama
hakuna mtu akona hiyo time ya kuenda sijui hapa hill, sijui Huduma Centers. Mimi hata siendangi tao kugongea watu milango ati clearance.
Hebu lete phone yako nikushow.
Sawa, shika.
Ni simple sana. Una dial *433#, alafu unaweka agency code 430430, kisha utapata report yako instantly.
Tatoti wewe ni msharp. Ona kama ingia.
Naona kakoka sawa.
You can download the Cristobal app on Google Play Store. Metropol CRB services are also found in Huduma Centers and in over 300 agents countrywide.
Nimenyimwa! It's time to take control of your credit information via our self-service platform. Monitoring your credit listing status has never been this easy. Simply register by dialing *433#, enter your ID number, enter agent number 430430. To complete registration, pay 100 Kenyan shillings via mobile money. You will then receive a link to your credit report. With Cristobal, know your listing status, who has listed you, your Metro score, your credit report, and get your certificate of clearance. You are now empowered to make sound economic decisions. Talk to us today.
Welcome back. This is Metropol Business Center. My name is Stephen Kimani, and on this part of the show, we'll dive straight into our gadget review segment, and I'm joined by Ian Obila. Ian, welcome to Metropol Business Center.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Steve. Now, just standing here in studio, I can't help but wonder, in your times or in your heyday, what kind of games did people used to involve themselves in?
Well, if you're talking games, probably I can imagine at the back of the exercise book there was snakes and ladders.
Right.
If it's outdoor games, you're either doing board games or doing your police and robbers. Right. I mean, those are the games during our times.
Or even in an African context, we could say that people will actually play with the actual snakes and ladders. Well, far from that, 2020 has actually been a very good year for the gaming revolution, and it's with great pleasure that today I review the PlayStation 5, 2020's revolutionary games console. So as we can see, the PlayStation, officially abbreviated as a PS, is a Japanese video game brand that consists of 5 home video game consoles, as well as a media center, and an online service, a line of controllers, and 2 handhelds, and a phone, as well as multiple magazines. The brand is produced by Sony Interactive Entertainment, a division of Sony, and the first PlayStation console was released in Japan December 1994. Wow, this franchise has actually been running since the 90s, the early 90s, and it has continued to raise the bar in terms of gaming consoles and entertainment in the industry.
Well, take us through the features.
Right. So the PS5 is a superb console that offers a compelling next-generation gaming level, and it's well designed. So it's a welcome upgrade to the PS4 and an exciting portal to the next-generation gameplay. The PS4 is the predecessor to the PS5, which is what the PS5 is actually coming to replace. And the powerful new PlayStation console offers many advantages over its predecessors, both physically and with its forward-looking graphical capabilities. It's powered by an AMD GPU graphics processing unit. Now, for those in the dark with this technology jargon, a GPU is actually a specialized electronic circuit that is designed to rapidly manipulate and alter memory to accelerate the creation of images. So maybe on your phone, when you're looking at pictures or images, playing video, the GPU, the graphics processing unit, is actually what's responsible for that process or operation. And it can create images in a frame buffer, and it's intended for output on a display. And it can process 10.28 teraflops versus a meager 1.8 teraflops in the original PS4, which is what is being replaced. So a teraflop actually represents about 1 trillion operations per second. Can you imagine that, Mr. C?
Well, that's
in 1 second, you'll actually have 1 trillion operations. It's quite a leap because every year we see that the power of processors increases by about 1 gigabyte. So by this time next year, we'll actually have an incremental increase in the processing power of these devices, which is great for technology. And that's why the technology industry has been so progressing at such a fast rate. not many people are going to have this kind of headspace because the PS4 is really, really tall. And when I'm saying tall, it's tall. It's almost the size of, it's like almost a quarter of what we have here on the display. And most people are complaining that some of them actually won't fit on their desktops or their gaming setups at home. Well, for the advantages it brings onto the table, I think that's a trade-off that we can deal with. So not many people can help the position of the console, but they're accepting it. So let's look at the pros of this device. So we can see that the 2020 PlayStation 5 has 4K, 120 frames per second gameplay, and it can also support 8K. So when you're talking about 4K, we're talking about the number of pixels this device can actually output to your display. When, for example, 4K is about 4 times what this image right now is being transmitted to you, and 8K is about double that. So you can imagine the leap in terms of technology and display that this device offers gaming enthusiasts. So we also see that the PS Plus collection is of great value. The PS Plus collection is a proprietary Sony collection of offerings in its line that is exclusive to the people who will actually buy the PS5. And we also see that this device has revolutionary controller haptics. Now, when you're talking about a controller, it's the actual thing that you hold when you're interacting with the game. And we see that technology has revolutionized in such a manner that when you interact with the game is actually able to give you feedback. So for example, if maybe you're in a simulation of a vehicle driving over the road and the road is uneven and is uneven killed with terrain that's rough, you'll actually get feedback. Maybe the controller will vibrate or give you a couple of nudges to give you that, to get you immersed in the game or the experience that you're actually involved in. We also see that it has significantly faster load times. So self-explanatory, this machine is blazingly fast. Moving on to the things that people actually do not like, the size makes finding a home quite tricky, which we touched on. It's actually a lanky device, and it's actually horizontally placed, so it'll be standing sort of like this on your desktop, as opposed to the previous offerings, which would live on portrait mode on your desktop. We also see that the launch library could be a bit fuller, so maybe the development was rushed and they didn't involve or include much more authentic offerings in terms of games for this year, because you see that these companies actually release games for their platform. For the Sony actually releases games that are exclusive to the PS5. Right. So we see that it has limited backward compatibility, which means that if you have a device or you have games running the Sony platform, it will be hard to integrate with the new PS5, which is something that people actually are saying is a letdown. It does not support Dolby Vision, and it's a bit clunky. And as it said, it's a bit low on the launch library. And some games actually force you to choose between ray tracing or other options, which means that before you play a game, you have to specify some settings which you have to choose between, or else you'll not be able to actually play the game. So looking at the other in-depth technology or mechanical specifications of this device, most people might be tempted to actually go for a 4K display or a 4K television, because this device offers display in 4K, but you actually don't need to, because this device has very fast load times, and even on your regular device, on your regular TV at home, it will perform superbly and give you stellar images. It seamlessly bridges the gap between the last generation and 2020, which has been a very big year for gaming, mostly because owing to the recent pandemic, most people have been at home. So they find themselves engaging themselves maybe in indoor activities, which may include or not limited to gaming.
How much is a PS5 going for?
Right. Actually was going to touch on that. So the PS5 actually retails for $499 US, which roughly translates to about 54,953 shillings.
It's making 55,000 shillings.
Exactly. That's an average Kenyan's income. What say you about that?
Not quite, but I mean,
on the average, on the low side.
But I mean, it's just probably the price maybe of a high-end phone.
Oh, okay.
Thereabout.
Yeah, so does this, in your opinion, does this justify you buying a PS5 for yourself or maybe for a loved one?
I'll let the consumer decide that.
Very well. So the $1 million question, or rather the $500 question is, should you buy a PS5? And for this, considering the fact that Sony or Microsoft only asks for 500 or so every 7 years, it feels like people feel like they've been deceived. But I think if you need a PlayStation right away, it's no rush. There's no rush to get it, because right now it launched almost I think a week ago, so the prices are a bit up there. But for those who are willing to set aside the actual money, they could wait a few weeks until the price deteriorates a bit for them to actually get the device. So on top of that, the big holiday season games are actually Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, and Cyberpunk 2077, and are really all made for the PS4 and Xbox One hardware, but the new console may allow for better frame rates. So the PS5 is actually a steal for those who are lucky enough to get it, and best of luck for those who are wishing to cop it. But before I go, I'm going to leave you with a clip, or rather before we come back, I'm going to leave you with a clip that just details how much people are willing to get this PS5, or how disappointing one can be if you were promised one and actually didn't get it. Enjoy.
Where is it?
It was a joke.
Are you serious?
It's a filter, Jonah.
Come on.
You thought.
See, I knew you were gonna fucking do that. Dude, you gotta be kidding me. PS5? Really? Bro, it's all that everywhere! On National's life, there's no...
Yeah, it was all a joke.
Yo, my girlfriend is the best girlfriend in the world. I'm gonna let y'all know right now.
Babe. Hi, babe.
Babe.
Oh my god.
Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at?
It was just a prank, babe.
Babe.
Oh my god.
Don't tell me it was a fucking prank, babe. My friend. Yo, you just deleted your number.
Yeah, bro, it's over for that, man. I ain't got time.
Corny.
Are you serious? Oh my god.
Years,
I'm so sorry, babe.
I said it's on site next time I see you.
Yo.
So that actually shows you how much people are willing to give or take to actually cop the PS5. What say you, Mr. Steve?
Well, let it land on our shores and see how the market reacts.
Amen. Let that will be done.
Very well. Thanks a lot, Ian, for taking us through the PlayStation 5. Now, as we come to the close of our show today, let's take a look at today's cyber security tip. And the tip here is, always look around before discussing any confidential information with a colleague or anyone. You never know who could be listening. And that's our cybersecurity tip of the week on Metropol Business Center. My name is Stephen Kimani. I look forward to seeing you yet again next week on this show, Metropol Business Center, the home of news and views from the world of business and economics. This is Metropol TV, Kenya's 24-hour business channel. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.
The history of maritime dates back to 2004, when the Kenya Maritime Authority was established in order to oversee the transfer of responsibilities in shipping matters from the Kenya Ports Authority to an autonomous state corporation. In 2006, it was legally constituted under the Kenya Maritime, with its mandate being to regulate, coordinate, and oversee maritime affairs in the country. A new version was amended in 2009, the Merchant Shipping Act. The Act provides the basis for addressing maritime safety, security, and training, as well as opening opportunities for investment in water transport and related. Kenya lies on the direct path of one of the busiest international shipping lanes in the world, with estimated 50 vessels of various types operating there at any given time. These vessels will very likely to be oil tankers ferrying the commodity from the rich fields in the Middle East countries, varying in displacement from 50 to 250,000 metric tons. With a coastline measuring over 600 kilometers from Tanzania in the south to Somalia in the north, Kenya has always been a major player in maritime affairs, extending back to the 5th century.
To Street Biashara, where we test your general knowledge on business terms. Now you can see I'm back on the streets of Nairobi. I'm about to find out what Kenyans understand with the term liability. Do you know what it means? Well, let's go find out.
Liability inamaanisha ile kitu ambayo inafanya biashara inapoteza pesa. Inaweza ikakuwa ni deni, inaweza ikakuwa ni hasara fulani, ama inaweza kuwa pengine ni ile expenses yenye biashara inarago. Hiyo tunaweza tukasema ni liability. Kwa mfano kama unanunua mafuta ya gari kwa biashara, hiyo gari ama hiyo mapesa mafuta ni kama liability kwa biashara yako.
Liability, I can say this is a kind of an asset. Expenses. Expenses that the business has to meet. And in most cases it can be, let me say, things like loans. I guess I can't give the actual definition, but that's what I understand from it.
Liability is something like a loss. Mostly liabilities, these are losses that people incur.
Liability is, that's from the word liability, it means it's a burden. It is an expense that you incur after you spend. So it might not be necessarily be an asset, but it's a burden that is incurred by a certain either an individual or account.
Liabilities ni inahusika ile vitu ambayo unahacha navyo sana. First come in your the first needs in your business.
Now, after getting the chance to really understand what Kenyans know about the term liability, we're back in studio and it's time for us to get a clear perspective from an expert. Now, joining me today on this episode of Street Biashara is Job Kiage, who is an accounting and finance expert. Thank you so much for joining me today, Job.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Great. So we'll just jump right into you breaking it down for us, what exactly liability means.
Liability is a business obligation, and these obligations are always due. So in essence, I want to shorten it, a a liability is a business obligation. Just straight to the point.
Okay. And I feel like this is a term we hear a lot. But if you ask someone, give me an example of liability, they'll have no idea. So can you break down for us and give us some of the examples we could consider as a liability?
Liabilities are classified into two. We have the current liabilities and the non-current liabilities. The current liabilities are typically settled using the current assets, which are assets that are used up within 1 year, a duration of 1 year. So we are talking about the current liabilities being those liabilities which must be honored before the end of the year. An example of a current liability include the accounts payable, the short-term debts, the dividends, the notes payable, as well as the income tax owed. Those are the examples of liabilities that we have. On the other hand, we have what we call the non-current liabilities. The non-current liabilities, on the other hand, are long-term debts, long-term obligations, which must be honored at least in not less than 1 year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
An example is long-term loans.
All right. Great.
Yes.
And having talked about and explained to us what exactly liabilities are, one will just understand that it's a bad thing. A liability is not exactly good. But is there good and bad liability?
And necessarily, liabilities are not bad. When a liability is tied into the creation of more wealth, that liability is not bad. For instance, we are talking about loans. The thumb rule is you borrow in order for you to invest. If you're doing that, a liability is not bad. But if you are having more liabilities in a business, then at the end of the duration or the financial duration, your finances in that business are going to be hurt. So it depends whether you have a huge liability vis-a-vis what that liability is doing. If that liability is being used to generate more wealth, then that liability is not bad.
And can debt or credit be classified as a liability?
Sorry?
Can debt or debt and credit or debt or credit be classified as a liability or not necessarily?
So when we are talking about debt, let's talk about the differences. There are primarily differences between liability and debt.
Okay.
Liability is a wider term which includes all the money or the financial obligations which a company owes to other parties. And when I'm talking about a company, I'm also including the businesses, small businesses. Whereas debt is the narrow term and is a part of the liability which rises when funds are raised by a company through borrowing or any other parties. So when we are talking about debt and liabilities, there is that distinction.
Thank you for that, Job. Now, that wraps up our conversation for today. Thank you so much for giving us a clear perspective about what liability is. I do hope our viewers now understand the term very well. Now, that brings us to the end of this episode of Street Biashara. But remember, in order to learn more business terms, do join me on the next episode.
Experts have argued on the origin of French beans, but most agree that it originates from Central and Southern America. Going by its botanical name, Phaceolus vulgaris, the French bean was first domesticated in Peru about 6,000 years ago. It grows in the form of a bush that can reach up to 20 inches long. It flowers and produces bean pods, which are the edible part of the plant. They can be grown round the year with the aid of irrigation. There are about 130 varieties of the bean, but in Kenya, Samantha, Picasso, Buffalo, Morgan, Boston, among a few others, are the varieties you will come across. French beans are propagated through seeds planted directly to the field. You will require 25 to 30 kilograms of seeds per acre. It is advised that you plant single rows, one seed per hole, spacing them at 30 by 15 centimeters. But for double rows, then the spacing becomes 60 by 30 centimeters. For easy management, plant blocks of 4 single rows or 2 double rows with a 50 centimeter path in between. French beans grow well at an altitude of 1,000 to 2,100 meters above sea level. The beans mature faster in warm regions. The ideal growing temperature range between 21 and 27 degrees centigrades. French beans require well-distributed rainfall of 900 to 1,200 millimeters per year. Excess rains and prolonged drought result in poor yield. And they grow well on well-drained, rich in organic matter soils that are slightly acidic to alkaline with a pH value of 6.5 to 7.5. French beans are nutritious and have many benefits, among them being: they help in fetal development when eaten during pregnancy. They prevent premature aging. They enhance bone health. They enhance heart health. They improve eyesight. They are rich in dietary fiber, which is essential in body fat regulation. They are a source of vitamin A, B, D, and K. French beans take 45 to 60 days to mature before harvesting can commence. For tasty bean pods, harvest the young pods 2 to 3 times in a week. This not only gives the best bean, but also encourages production. An acre can produce up to 6 tons. It is advised that you rotate the crop with crops that do not belong to the legume family. This helps in weed control, reduction of soil erosion, rejuvenation of soil organic matter, pests and disease management. Pests to look out for are bean fly, thrips, aphids, red spider mites, white flies, African bollworms, cutworms, and diseases such as rust, downy mildew, bacterial blight. In Kenya, French beans grow well and are farmed in Nakuru, Nyandarua, Kajiado, Kiambu, Murang'a, Machakos, Kisumu, Uasin Gishu, Kirinyaga, Nyeri, Embu counties.
Are you tired of selfies that cut off half the shot, or do not want to walk around with a selfie stick? Well, Airpix is the solution for you. Airpix is a pocket-sized, ultra-light aerial camera designed to change personal photography forever. Let's take it away. AirPix is a revolutionary device that allows people to take stunning air selfies, photos or videos, and claims to be the easiest and most affordable way to capture experiences while remaining immersed in one's life with no need for huge learning curves. Simply put it on your palm and slightly lift it up to launch the device. At only 80 grams, AirPix is pocket-sized and equipped with a 12-megapixel camera for photos and videos of up to 1080p resolution at 30 frames per second. It has 16 GB of onboard memory, supports gesture control, and can record videos in 360 degrees. There is an optional app available on Android and iOS devices that allow for one-touch autonomous flight, editing clips and images, adding filters and sharing to social media.